What's up everybody, I'm Adam, you're watching the Model Aviator channel, and Heidi and I hope that you all had a great Christmas and that you're going to have an awesome New Year. We thought we'd end 2024 with a Model Aviator Special by naming our picks for planes of the year. Now there's some criteria. First, all these airplanes had to be introduced in the calendar year 2024. They of course have to be airplanes that we've got first-hand experience with. And we tried to pick categories or genres, if you will, where there are at least two models that we tested in 2024 in that category. Although there will be a couple of honorable mentions at the end that are airplanes that are the only ones in their category that we flew on the year, but that we feel are pretty significant anyway, so we're going to mention those. Now keep in mind, this is basically my personal choices based on my experience with these airplanes as a pilot and a modeler. It's not gospel. You may or may not agree with my choices. That's okay. This is all about fun, so let's get to it. We thought we'd start small, so the first category we're going with is the UMX and microplanes. This is probably one of the most popular genres in model aviation. I think everybody has at least a handful of these things. They sell like hotcakes, and because of that, they introduce a lot of them each year. 2024 was no exception. We flew a bunch of these things. Let's face it, they all look good. They all fly good. E-Flight specifically, in their UMX and micro lines, they've got this figured out, and they make the best ones out there. I don't think anybody will argue that. So it's no surprise that when we narrowed it down to 3 of the like 7 or 8 that we flew this year, that those 3 are E-Flight, UMX, and microplanes. The first nominee, the UMX F86 Sabre. This is a 4-cell powered screamer, the first 4-cell powered micro EDF, and this thing is the fastest UMX EDF we've ever flown, and it looks the part. Second nominee, Micro Draco. Simply put, the most detailed UMX or micro ever made by a long shot. And finally, the third nominee has become my favorite UMX EDF to fly, the E-Flight UMX ME262. This 30mm twin is quite the screamer in its own right. It looks the part, and it is fun to fly. So I have to say, this was a very tough choice for me. I really wanted it to be the ME262. I've been flying that here lately, and I love that jet. But I cannot in good conscience not give it to Micro Draco. That airplane is groundbreaking in the category. More LED lights than you can shake a stick at, more details than we've ever seen on any ultra micro, slows down to a crawl, makes a great STOL plane, and it's just big enough to be flown off of the same terrain that you'd fly a lot of larger airplanes off of, so it's a no-brainer. Top one for us this year, Micro Draco. Next up, the Scale General Aviation category. Now, this is a very popular genre in our hobby. It's near and dear to my heart because I have some full-scale general aviation experience and a lot of fond memories as a result. 2024 saw a lot of really cool releases in the category, so the nominees are the E-Flight Cherokee 1.3 meter version 2. This airplane has new electronics, a new paint job, a phenomenal LED light set, and going through the air could be easily mistaken for an actual Piper Cherokee. Very impressive. The next nominee is the FMS 182 1.5 meter for exactly the same reasons as the Cherokee. It's got a great outline, a lot of scale detail, a great light set, and going through the air you could easily mistake this for an actual 182. And finally, the last nominee is the recently released Hangar 9 10cc J3 Cub. This is a big balsa beauty that looks and flies the part of an actual J3. If you know what you're doing on the sticks, you can almost exactly duplicate the look of a full-scale J3. So when it comes to the winner here, this was not anywhere near as hard for me as the UMX category. It is beyond any shadow of a doubt for me, the Hangar 9 10cc J3 Cub. I flew an actual J3 Cub with my brother, got quite a few hours in that airplane. Those are some of the most fond memories of general aviation that I have. This airplane looks and flies the part, and it is a no-brainer for me. It is that J3 all day long. Our next category is the Sport Bushplane category, and that is, next to EDFs, the best-selling category in the hobby today. They're very popular, and every year there are always a lot of really cool new choices. Our 2024 nominees are the E-flite Turbo Timber SWS, the Sport Wood Series. This airplane is big, it's balsa, it's precise, and they laid down a definitive gauntlet, climbed right to the top of the mountain right off the bat and said, okay, you guys have a year. Come and get me. Well, Durafly didn't try to come and get them, but they went polar opposite and introduced the Durafly Tundra version 3, and that airplane is much smaller, it's much easier to transport, it's a lot cheaper to buy, and it flies phenomenally and really looks the part. So that actually put their hat in the ring for Sport Bushplane of the Year just for those reasons, because it's more affordable and more reachable for more people. And then finally, our final nominee is the Super Timber. E-flite came out with the airplane that was going to knock their own airplane right off the mountain. This airplane, if anything, could take out the Turbo Timber SWS with the features this airplane had and the performance it provided. This would be the one to do it. So our choice is pretty simple, right? I mean, it's the Super Timber, of course. Not so fast. I mean, these are my picks. And listen, if you'd asked me a month or two after I first flew that Super Timber, I'd have told you, hell yeah, that's it. It is my favorite foam sport bushplane that I've ever flown. But then I messed around and I started flying the SWS more towards the middle and end of the year. And I have to say now, if I had to pick between those two, it's the SWS all the way for me. That airplane is so precise. It is almost as capable from an aerobatic standpoint as the Super Timber. It doesn't have quite the features that the Super Timber has, but it doesn't really need them in my mind. I just love the way it looks. I love the way it flies. And for me, that is the best sport bushplane of 2024. Next up will be our pick for propeller-driven Warbird of the Year 2024. And interestingly enough, we only flew two in this genre, and they're very different but significant in their own way. The first nominee is the E-flite P51 1.0 meter. Now this airplane is very simple. It has removable gear. You can fly it off the ground, or you can hand launch it. It does look the part. It flies incredibly good. Experienced pilots will have a blast with this, and this airplane's easy enough to fly. It is going to introduce a lot of people to the wonderful world of warbirds. But the competition is incredibly stiff. The other nominee is the Aviation Super Tucano. Now this airplane is big, it is beautiful, it is different, and to be quite honest, this really isn't close, even though both airplanes are very significant and worth having in their own right. I mean, do I even need to say it? Aviation Super Tucano was one of the most popular releases of the year, period. Everybody that has flown one absolutely loves it. It looks the part, it has a lot of present, it has nice features, very, very scale. It has the capability to be flown not scale if you want to do it. Check out John with Two Brothers if you want to see what that thing can actually do. It is a phenomenal airplane and easily the best Warbird we flew this past year. So before we get to our final two categories, which are EDF categories, we thought we'd go ahead and cover the two honorable mentions that we wanted to go over. We flew one dedicated 3D plane this year. It was the E-flite Extra 330 SC. This is the best flying full-bodied foam 3D plane that I've flown so far, period. I really liked that airplane, really enjoyed it. And obviously none of the foam full-bodied airplanes can compete with dedicated purpose-built balsa 3D planes. But for a foam 3D plane, that thing is bad to the bone and certainly worth taking a look at if you want something like that. And we flew one propeller-driven twin this year, and it happened to be a really good one that surprised the heck out of us. The X-Fly Twin Otter is big, has a lot of presence, it's very easy to fly, it flies great, way more capable than you think it would be. If you are looking for a very cool twin that flies awesome, that is definitely one that you need to take a look at. Okay, so we are down to our final two categories. They are both EDF categories. We're going to start with best scale EDF we've flown in 2024. That comes with a very big caveat. We've flown a lot of scale, quote-unquote scale EDFs in 2024, but the vast majority of them have been pretty simple hand-launched, removable gear airplanes that really look the part but are not anywhere near what you'd be considered full house. For this category, we're just picking from the two planes we've flown this year that had at least retracts and flaps, and if it had lights, that'd be even better. There were two. They were both from Freewing. The first is the newly released F9F Panther from Freewing. It's 70 millimeters. This airplane really looks and flies the part. We had a great time flying it. It is quite an addition to that genre because a lot of people really love Korean War era jets, and they're very easy to power realistically with an EDF. The next one is the Freewing twin 64mm F-14 Tomcat. This airplane is pretty groundbreaking, a lot of features. It really looks the part, and it comes in a size that is much easier to store, transport, and overall deal with than the larger twin 80 version. So it would seem like that the F-14 would easily be our pick, and it would if it was easier to land. That airplane flies great, and it's not to say that you can't learn to land it. You absolutely can. My buddy Dustin has it mastered, didn't modify it, didn't do anything to it, but there are a lot of people that are having a harder time with that feel the need to have to modify it to get it to land the way that it should. And I've seen some videos of the way that airplane lands when some of these people do these modifications, and it is something that Freewing probably needs to address. To be fair, you shouldn't have to be a really high-level pilot to be able to land a foam jet in today's market, even the scale one. So that makes the easy winner the Panther. That airplane, as we said before, it looks the part, it flies the part, it has a lot of scale detail, and it flies amazing. It flies like a really well-behaved sport jet, and it has a large enough battery bay to be kind of a smaller scale jet that you can run a pretty large 6-cell pack, up to 6, maybe even 7,000, and it'll actually fly with that. So pretty easy choice in this case. We'll take the Panther. And for our final genre of 2024, we're going to take a look at the best sport EDF that we've flown in 2024. And the first nominee is an amazing airplane, groundbreaking, probably the best looking thing I've ever seen, the FMS Integral. I'm messing with you. That is not one of the nominees. So an FMS jet is one of the nominees. We'll get to that in a second. Our first nominee is the E-flite Viper 64. This little 64mm jet was pretty groundbreaking in what it offered and how easy it is to get in the air and what it would do once you got it there. When it comes to our second nominee, the FMS jet, you guys know exactly what it is. It is the FMS 90mm Avanti. This is a good-looking, great flying sport jet, and to be fair, one of the best sport jets overall that I've ever flown. We really had a blast with it. So when it comes to our two nominees, both are phenomenal EDFs, and it's not lost on us that they are very different even though they're in the same class. They're both sport EDFs, but one's a 64mm, one is in the 90mm class. I'm going to go ahead and tell you that we're going to give the nod for Sport EDF of the Year to the Viper 64, and I'll tell you why. When it comes to the Avanti 90, That's a phenomenal flying airplane. It's one of the best Sport EDFs that I've ever flown. But the fact of the matter is, I have flown Sport EDFs that will slow down every bit as good, if not a little bit better, that are just as aerobatic, that are faster, and have more climb rate out of the box. Now, what makes that airplane really interesting and what makes it a keeper in my hangar is spending more money on it. If you buy the accessory thrust vectoring tailpipe, that makes a huge difference. You add the cost of a gyro that can handle the airplane's control surfaces and that thrust vectoring nozzle separately, which really wake that system up and make that airplane special, then it is really something. With that, absolutely rivals and probably would get the nod over the Viper 64, but we're talking out of the box. Out of the box, the Avanti is just another contender in the 90mm sport jet genre. Maybe the best to some, it's not going to be the best to quite a few. When it comes to the 64mm sport jet genre, the Viper 64 blows everything else out of the water. It has more features. It is the fastest that we've ever clocked on our GPS. It has the best climb rate, the most vertical, and it slows down the best. Simply put, it is the best in its genre, and if you've flown all of them like I have, there's just no argument to that, so we have to give it the nod. So there you go. A lot of people are going to want to know what would be my pick of airplane of the year, of them all. And it's an airplane that pulls at my heartstrings. It is the 10cc J3 Cub from Hangar 9. That airplane just means a lot to me. Really honored to have it in our hangar, and every time I see it, every time I fly it, it reminds me of flying a full-scale J3 with my brother, and you just can't replace that feeling, and no other model makes me feel that way. So that's it for me. Let us know in the comments what you think of our choices, and let us know what airplanes you think are the best in their specific genres that you flew this year in 2024. We'd really like to know. We'll put all our affiliate links in the description. If you'd like to support our channel when you go through those, Heidi and I appreciate it. Doesn't cost you more. Thanks very much. And thank you all so much for watching and supporting our channel in all the ways that you do. I think 2025 is going to be a great year for us. We certainly hope it will be for you. We'll see you then. Take care.